And I thought it's a great backup plan to just have one degree that you've done.
Being a chartered accountant as a backup plan, I love it.
You were reaching a scale that you probably will find difficult to recreate 1 year down the line.
Damn.
That's the only reason I'd say leave formal education. So at FluidAI, we've built a generative AI, an enterprise generative AI system that ingests all your documentation, connects to all your core systems, and then you just have an AI to talk to. So you just married to the process of enjoying the day, of enjoying what you're working on, and just moving the needle forward. I think you end up getting a lot more success than, oh, this year I want to achieve X revenue and X profitability, X number of customers and X number of likes and X number of followers. I think that destroys a lot of entrepreneurs.
So you were also behind Warren Buffett's conversational AI bot.
He told me 3 words that fundamentally changed the way I work.
Okay.
Right? And he said, invest in yourself.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Happy Hour with FinCocktail. Today we're going to tackle one of the mammoths of our generation, artificial intelligence. I'm going to talk to one of my dear friends. He's been featured on Forbes 30 Under 30, Fortune 40 Under 40. He's essentially a big deal. And I have the pleasure of knowing him since essentially high school. Hi Abhinav, welcome.
Hi, Sayali, I'm good.
This is so funny, right? We're doing this officially for the first time.
Absolutely.
Where I'm going to pick your brain about this.
I've seen your show for so long, so it's nice to be on it.
I'm so glad. So, going back to the beginning.
Okay.
So, I know for a fact that you were with us at Dhirubhai for high school. Then a bunch of us, almost like I think 80% of our class went abroad to study.
Yeah.
You were not one of them.
Yeah.
Why did you do that? Why did you choose to stay here?
I think for me, I kind of started the business back then. And, so I was always a commerce guy.
Yes.
And
I know.
And I love, like the first time I picked up tech, like I wrote my first line of code. I mean, the idea that you could write, and it was a silly code, like I wrote the Fibonacci sequence, right? Up to 1 million.
Oh, damn.
But the fact that I could do it up to 1 million
was cool.
yeah, in 10 minutes, you felt power in your hands, right? And I think that changed it for me. So kind of started the company when I was in school.
Yes.
And I think then I wanted to spend time building it, which is why I thought India would be, and staying at home would be the right place.
Of course.
To kind of continue focusing on it and growing it.
Nice. But you still went on to complete your CA.
Yes.
Right after.
So I did. So I was at HR
Uh-huh.
after Dhirubhai Ambani, and then I finished CA because I also was I love finance. I used to enjoy finance. It's not like I don't like it.
Essentially, we're big nerds who love,
who love to study.
studying.
Exactly. Should not get great marks, but I still love to study. But yeah, so I still love I liked finance, so it was nice. And plus also I kind of at the back of my head was not sure that I'll do an MBA. And I thought it's a great backup plan to just have one degree that you've done.
I love how he is called a chartered accountant. Being a chartered accountant as a backup plan. I love it.
Always lots of contingency planning. You'll see in my life is always there.
So you also started your MBA, if I'm not wrong.
Yes. So I was at ISB for a very, very short bit.
What are these fancy backup plans that you had, bro?
No, so in fact, actually, I was funny because so we were growing the business and we were focusing on artificial intelligence, and we would do all these India contracts. We did Axis Bank and we did ICICI and all. We're trying to break the US market. And at that time when I got in, we finally got the go-ahead from Bank of America that yes, we want to work with you guys. So I was like, oh, this is really bad timing because I just started MBA. I thought I'd run, business and that together. But then I said, okay, now this is that opportunity, once in a lifetime, screw it, let's kind of,
Nice. So a lot of people nowadays are going through this kind of, transition where they're saying that formal education is not kind of the way they want to go. They're dissing it, maybe not, sometimes on social media. And they're like, you know what, MBA mat karo, start your own company.
Yeah.
But you are a fantastic example for me because I think you've always had contingency plans. You've finished your CA degree, then you also got into your MBA, but then you left it for a reason. So what would you say to somebody who is like, let's say 23, 24 and who's like, mujhko MBA nahi karne ka because I will be a founder and I will be a millionaire.
Yeah. And it's very cool to, sound like, okay, I'm not doing this. I take this contrarian path and stuff. But yeah, I think it's it's kind of a balance, right? You like you see all these movies and you see these successful people, right? But I think everyone studies the successes, right? There are tons of people who dropped out of an MBA or didn't finish formal education and really regretted it.
Absolutely.
So I think the formula is actually pretty simple. One is have a backup. I think for me, CA was that backup, right? So even if I'm not an MBA, I still had something to fall back on if the business didn't work out.
Correct.
And kid you not, there are a lot of times where we thought it's not working out post leaving ISB as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's never a sure shot, right? So you need that backup. And number two is you should have a damn good reason to skip it. Because I feel if I had to go back in time, those 2 years or 1 year, if ISB was a little shorter, that 1 year MBA or a 2 year MBA is very valuable, both from a network perspective as well as a learnings perspective.
Yeah.
Right? Now, for me, it was like, oh, okay, we've been trying to do this thing. We're trying to break the US market. We got the opportunity. Now, maybe that opportunity won't come again.
Correct.
Right? So if you're just dropping out because it's cool and you want to just start something, I would rather just start it with an MBA.
Yeah.
But where you feel it's coming in the way and you are reaching a scale that you probably will find difficult to recreate 1 year down the line.
Damn.
That's the only reason I'd say leave formal education and, take that leap immediately.
Nice. Honestly, this is the freshest perspective on leaving an MBA we've gotten. Because I think we also kind of gravitate towards guests or people in general where we all agree on the fact that you can't diss formal education like that, like blatantly, and as a blanket statement at least.
Yeah, you can't. And in fact, so I'm now a guest faculty at ISB.
Oh,
so I actually go back and lecture, and
look at you.
You teach the kids, and you like. I think the stuff you kind of learn, they expose you to phenomenal stuff.
Yeah.
So it is like I feel some of the stuff like I missed from MBA because I do get to sit in a lot of classes is stuff that you were like, oh, dude, I was breaking my head on this problem in my business for donkey's years, and they teach it and they teach it so well. Probably been useful to have gone through the process.
So it's funny that you're actually going back and learning whatever you missed out on.
Yeah, absolutely. I talk to professors and say like, oh, how do I solve this? And they're like, oh, we teach this. You should have probably finished the thing.
Oh, damn. So you and Raghav, your brother, who's your co-founder at FluidAI, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
You guys are self-taught coders.
Correct.
What? How did you get there?
I think, when I was at Dhirubhai Ambani, that time I started learning tech.
On the
or
side.
actually, like 1 year before that, when I was in my 10th. And we built these few platforms where, which became pretty reasonably successful. Like we built this platform called Exam Papers Online.
Okay.
Doesn't exist anymore.
Doesn't exist.
But,
If only.
yeah. Like it was a YouTube of past papers to study from.
Nice.
And that did really well. So I think what we realized is with coding, I think it's just like, unlike other areas or expertise, right? There's a lot of stuff online that you can pick up very fast. Right? You just go online and say, I want to learn. Like I learned PHP back in the day. Now the languages I know are very different. But, you just went online, learned it. And it just moved. Like, once you learn one thing, then the next and the next. And you're passionate about it, you keep learning it. Yeah. So I think then I realized, okay, formal education doesn't really help that. For that, because I was already moving quite quickly on that. And the thing is, earlier, like this generation is at a very nice stage because we used to learn coding, right?
Yeah.
So you were learning the way the machine is talking, right? That's what coding is. You're learning the machine's language. With generative AI, the machine has now learned your language, right?
So the machine is talking to you in your language.
Your language, right? So it's coming the other way, which is great because you don't need to really go deep, right? You can. Like even when we prompt it, like you say, oh, rewrite this.
Yeah.
It's in a formal, it's actually coding in a sense, right?
Yeah.
You're telling a machine to do something differently.
Yeah.
It's just that earlier days, programmer would write 50 lines of code, half of it wouldn't work, and they would keep redoing. Now your prompt doesn't work and you keep redoing it.
Oh, wow. So what would you say to somebody who wants to maybe be self-taught today in terms of tech?
I think the biggest mistake I've seen most people make when they're trying to learn coding is they're learning coding for the sake of learning.
Okay.
And then, it's like you sit in a lecture, you go online, you use Udemy or whatever platform out there, right? You learn. And then 3 months down the line, I meet a lot of people who say, oh, I've forgotten a lot of what I learned. Right?
Oh, okay.
So they'll learn it. And then 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, they've forgotten most of it because they didn't absorb it. Yeah, they didn't like, you have to think of a problem you're trying to solve.
Okay.
Like build an end use case for yourself. Like, okay, like if you're an investor, like I'm going to write this program that helps me track my portfolio better. or helps me do, take bigger position, like, level up my position faster. So when you write something that you're going to actually end up using, or it's for someone else that's going to end up using it, it really becomes more exciting because what you're delivering at the end of it is like, oh wow, this helped X, or this helped me become more efficient. And number two is you start to remember a lot more, because then you're creatively thinking of solving something, as opposed to, hey, here's this course, they've given you a few sample problems to solve, and you kind of did it.
It's like mathematics, right? Matlab geometry or whatever. If you don't use it today,
Exactly.
you're just like, whatever use cases you solved in your exam papers, now you're like, ah, theek hai, bhool gaye.
Yeah,
Not a big deal.
Exactly. And like, ironically, in AI, like when we learned like differential equations and integration,
Oh my God.
calculus, basically the whole calculus, right? All AI code is based on calculus. So
Really? So whoever is talking about how we should have been taught XYZ instead of the Pythagoras theorem is wrong.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like phenomenal. Like the amount, like if you know calculus really well, you can write almost a full generative AI or a deep learning algorithm on your own.
Oh, wow.
And it's phenomenal. But I don't think schools and all are teaching it that way.
They're teaching, like you said, when you learn for the sake of learning, maybe schools are teaching it for the sake of teaching.
Exactly. Like imagine you sat like in the 7th standard and someone told you, okay, we're going to code an AI algorithm that learns, and calculus is the way to do it. So we're going to teach you a bit of calculus along the way. At the end, we'll have like a neural net or something that's learning from data. I mean, that would excite. It wouldn't excite everyone, but it would excite a big part of the audience.
I think almost everyone, at least in today's day and age, I think that's...
Yeah. I still think you'd have a lot of drop off midway through that process.
I mean, now the process is difficult. That's not our problem.
Exactly. But yeah, you'd get. I think you'd make good progress for sure.
Nice. I like it. So going back to FluidAI a little bit, when did you come across the idea that you wanted to build something like this? And what does FluidAI exactly do? Now, I know it, but I want everybody to know it.
Absolutely. I think the idea, like, so we were kind of, dabbling, this was back 2009 to 12, we were kind of dabbling in tech. We were building these learning management solutions for schools, colleges. In 2012, we were in New York for a holiday, both Raghav and me, with family. And there's this platform we used to follow called TechCrunch. It's a very big...
I still follow
it. Oh, you still follow it, right? Yeah, I know. Back in the day, TechCrunch was the deal, right? Yeah. So everyone used to, follow all the tech stuff that's happening. So we came to know that near our hotel, or like by the pier, they're having the TechCrunch Disrupt Hackathon, which is one of the world's largest 24-hour coding competitions. So me and Rao said, hey, this sounds a lot more fun than visiting Statue of Liberty for the 3rd time. So let's do this instead. So we dropped in there and met all these cool tech folks, and then we said, okay, chalo, we'll take part as well. And we were one of the winners there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and we were one of the first few people from India, because there were a lot of NRI Indians that had won it, but being back from India and winning it, we were one of the few to win it there. And that's what kind of catalyzed us that, okay, you know what, there is some tech capability. We probably should come back and look at more sophisticated tech to build. And that time, you know how Gen AI is right now? Neural nets was back then. Everyone was talking about, oh, neural nets, and all. So that's when we came back and said, let's build something big. And also, somewhere it helps us differentiate. Right? We were always thinking, like, we like it. It's great. Because it's a tech that learns on its own.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool, like very big passion for us. And we also felt it's great differentiate. Like you're standing up like against a 10,000 or 100,000 person company, like a TCS or something. If you're building learning management solutions, they're probably going to destroy you with just the manpower that they have. But in AI, as we've seen now also, a small company can destroy like a behemoth, which is what OpenAI is doing to Google.
Yeah.
Right? Like a small set of folks, like a non-profit almost. Like, I mean, they're differently designed, like for profit, but they don't want to make, existential money. But they're really taking them to town, right? Really, so that's what we felt, that, AI is one space we can differentiate.
That's very cool.
And what we do at FluidAI is essentially, I think the biggest challenge most companies or anyone who's working in an org faces, right, is there's so much messy documentation, processes. You're constantly sending, like a simple thing you need to do. You're like, oh, how do I do this? I'll ask my manager. Then the manager's redirecting you to someone else, right? getting work done
Oh.
in a large organization is extremely complicated and hard.
Yeah.
And almost 40% of organization time, like people time, is spent in figuring out how to do something from the systems and documentation. And only 50-60% is spent on valuable tasks. So at FluidAI, we've built a generative AI, an enterprise generative AI system that ingests all your documentation, connects to all your core systems, and then you just have an AI to talk to that says, okay, how do I do this? And it'll just give you the answer, give you the sources. You can go back and ask it, like, give me my last 3 months, like, which are my best performing customers. It'll get you that data and give it to you. So essentially, it helps you get work done a lot faster. And our mission is to enable people to do the best work of their lives by leveraging technologies like generative AI.
Nice. That's very cool. It's like your internal Google or internal ChatGPT that you can just ask and be like, here, there you go.
But not internal Google, because Google is getting a little outdated.
It's like, bye-bye Google, you're done. Next. Oh, damn. I still Google everything. I'm quite outdated that way then.
No, I think a lot of people still Google everything. It's changing.
Yeah.
But it will take time.
I'm sure. Any new tech obviously takes time to kind of become the norm.
Yeah. Sometimes it doesn't also, ironically, like sometimes it doesn't change. Like things just remain. Like, you know how you type on your keyboard, right? The QWERTY keyboard, right?
Yes.
Q is on the top, then WERTY. And it's this very weird arrangement of characters.
Yes.
And I used to also wonder, like, my theory was that, oh, this is a super optimized way of typing.
But it's not, right?
Right. Yeah, it's not.
I've heard this. I've read it somewhere.
So Christopher Scholes developed this technique in 1874 because he was one of the inventors of the typewriter.
Yeah.
So in the typewriter, these keys would get jammed, right? There was click keys were there.
Yeah.
So if you typed an A and a E, like A and a S together, like A and like common alphabets together, then they would get jammed because typewriters would type very fast. So he put all the common keys far away from each other, so the thing doesn't jam into it.
So actually made it difficult.
Yeah, and then when the keyboard came, everyone just said, "Oh, we'll use that format only." So it's actually a very inefficient way of working.
Yeah.
But it's just hard. Like you can't go changing like 3 billion people's keyboard way of working. So they've just stuck with it.
I believe I read somewhere that there is a more quote unquote optimized keyboard that they tried to kind of, disrupt this whole keyboard industry with.
But it's called.
Yeah, but it didn't work. Because people are like, nah, now I'm used to this.
Yeah, now it's like, and then you don't get those other keyboards and all. Like I tried learning it, then I was like, this is too much.
You're right. So many times it's not necessary, right? Like the disruptive tech kind of takes over. Maybe not disruptive, but like efficient tech may not take over. We just don't know.
I mean, many times when people use our enterprise GPT solution at FluidAI, we face this challenge. Like people will put like a 2-word search term, and then the AI won't know what to answer. Someone will put like installation manual, and then the AI will give you the manual, but like you probably could have asked the question like, how do I do this? And the AI would probably give you a far better answer. Right?
Yeah, well, you'll have to browse through the entire manual to know what you...
So I think a lot of people are still used to that Google search approach, right? Dumping it in the search. So it's a process.
Yeah, and I'm like terrible at prompting even like ChatGPT or whatever. I'm really bad at that. I need to learn.
Yeah, no, I think you don't need to learn, because I think the whole industry, like I think the single biggest goal the industry has been given, and it's what we do every day, is how can we take like a simple, whatever the person puts, not a person, but like a simple prompt, and like ensure it just gives a phenomenal output each time.
That's
irrespective.
Fair. Nice. So this actually is a great segue to my next thought. What are some of the challenges that you face, let's say currently, because like you earlier said, you face challenges so many times where you're like, oh shit, maybe this is not working out.
Yeah.
And that's the life of an entrepreneur, right? You
absolutely.
Really don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what are the challenges that you're facing right now in terms of the tech business and in terms of business also?
I think the biggest challenge that you face in business in general is that ability to suffer, right? Like,
elaborate.
Almost, like, think about it this way, right? Like, who becomes an entrepreneur or someone who wants to build a business, right? They have these standard traits, right? They're ambitious, they, look for other people's approval for validation.
Oh my God.
They want to be successful at everything that they do. And, they're very driven to do hard work and see great outcomes and results, right? And then when you contrast this, what business ends up being, right? And it ends up being doing a lot of hard work and a lot of it failing and not working.
Yeah.
A lot of it being bad decisioning, a lot of it being just learnings that you take through the process. And you might do sometimes everything right and you'll still fail miserably sometimes. And I think that process takes a lot out of you. And I think those that are able to go through that process with a smile on their face are the ones that become successful. Which is why you'll not necessarily see always the smartest people in your batch, the highest IQ folks, the person who came first, doesn't necessarily become the most successful entrepreneur or, because perseverance and just the right mindset and attitude are very different skills. And it's one thing when you read about a Steve Jobs who got thrown out of, Apple and then, started Next computers and then came back and then 10 years later built it again, right? But imagine, it's very nice to hear the story, very motivating, but when you live it, it's very different, right?
Very, very different.
Imagine if today you went and like I told you that everything you've built over these last 30 years is now zero.
Yeah.
And now for 10 years, you're going to be zero, right?
Yeah.
And then after that, you'll get another opportunity.
Yeah.
Now when you put it in that perspective, it looks a lot harder to do, right? When you put it in your own life's perspective. So I think that's a key skill. And once you learn that, everything else becomes easy, right? Because then if there is a challenge, right? If people is a challenge, or X is a challenge, Y is a challenge, it's just a part of the process to go forward with. So I think that's big one. Another big one is that how do you, as a smaller, younger company, really differentiate yourself? Because you're dealing with you're competing in tech, especially, right? You're competing with behemoths out there who are going to do it cheaper because they're going to just blow up money, who are going to try and, will have the best AI brains working on it. So I think just realizing where your positioning sits, you end up spending a lot more time. Sometimes it takes 2 to 3 years to 5 years to figure out where you sit in the space. You'll make money along the way, but you make really big money when you figure out where you sit.
Where you find a spot.
Yeah, where you find a little spot. And that can take a much longer time than you think it does.
Interesting. And when you find that spot, how do you kind of, cement your position there?
I think that part gets easy, right? Once you figured it out that, oh, this is really resonating, right? Look at your own channel. Once you guys, it just blows up, right? And then you double down on it. And then if you're a smart people or a set of group of people that are working in the company, then that second part is very easy because then it comes naturally to you guys. Okay, I need to work on this. This is the niche I found. I figured it out. Now let me put 100%.
Yeah. It's very, very nice perspective. I like the way you framed it, that it's the ability to suffer. Because you're right.
Yeah.
You suffer every day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Every day is a new struggle, new fires to put out. Literally, that's my line. That's what I always say.
Yeah. And I think somewhere you attach a lot of accomplishment mindset, right? It's okay, if I accomplish X, then I'm done.
Yeah.
And this is a very interesting story. So when the CEO of Pfizer was interviewed, right, after they'd come out with the vaccine, and that was it was the ultimate achievement, right? Because they'd come out with Pfizer, come out with the vaccine that saved a lot of people in the world. Their stock was an all-time high. He just won CEO of the Year award, right? And they interviewed him, and he didn't look like he's that happy. And they asked okay, what do you worry? What would you have to worry about? And he said just 2 words. He said, next year. Yeah. So okay, now we achieved this one. Next year is going to be tough, right? Because now I have to beat this.
Yeah.
So I think, no matter where you will reach,
very true.
It's always then what next?
What next?
Right? Even Michael Phelps had this challenge, right? They say that when he achieved his 25th gold medal, right, broke the world record of the most number of gold medals an individual has at the Olympics. Next day, he said, literally cried in his room, was depressed and wanted to kill himself.
Oh,
right? No. Because we're what now? Right? I've done this. And sometimes you feel it didn't amount to anything. Like, okay, I spent my entire life doing this, my 24 hours, like I dedicated it. And it was just for these 25 gold medals that are sitting in a cupboard and it's over.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it is to be very married to the process and not to the result and the accomplishment. So you're just married to the process of enjoying the day, of enjoying what you're working on and just moving the needle forward.
Yeah.
I think you end up getting a lot more success than, oh, this year I want to achieve X revenue and X profitability, X number of customers and X number of likes and X number of followers.
Yeah.
I think that destroys a lot of entrepreneurs.
Very true. That's why I think what you said about the mindset comes into play, right? Because yes, you've reached whatever goal you wanted to, but now there's a high, and after a high, there's always an inevitable low.
Exactly.
So you have to kind of be able to weather that storm.
Yeah.
Now, talking about highs, your goal, if I'm not wrong, I've read that is to pass what is a Turing test?
The Turing test.
The Turing test. Yes. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the Turing test is this very beautiful test created by Alan Turing, who is essentially one of the 4 founders. Like, he is the founder of AI. He was the first one that kind of came up with this concept. And interestingly enough, he solved this. The reason he created his first like kind of AI based algorithm, which is in the this was World War II, so 1940s. 1940s.
Yeah.
There was the Germans had this encryption machine called the Enigma machine.
Yes, of course.
And if you've seen the movie Imitation Game, right?
Yes.
You'll it's a beautiful story about this. But he essentially built a machine to crack the encryption mechanism, so that when Germans were messaging each other, the Allies could tell what the messages were, and that's what won them the war. So he came up with this technique. And when he came up with this technique that the machine learned how to decrypt this Enigma machine on its own, he came up with another theory. He said that, okay, this machine's quite smart, because for those days, for a machine to do that was like,
very smart.
Yeah, crazy. So he said the true test of technology will be when if a machine is talking behind a curtain, so you have a curtain and there's a human texting, let's say, there are 2 people in the other side of the curtain. The human's texting for some time another human, and sometimes he's texting a machine. And if he can't tell, if the human can't tell whether he's talking to a machine at the other end or a human, that's when the machine has passed the Turing test.
Interesting.
And till date, nobody has passed it.
Okay.
And it looked like it was going to be like 2050, we're going to be able to do it. It's going to take a lot of time. But now we're reaching a stage where it's
close?
Almost there. Like, you're literally 1 to 5 years away from that.
That's insane.
And imagine the day you can talk to a machine without telling the difference. Like, I was talking about how it's like you're like the machine's learning your language, right?
Yeah.
The Turing test is that moment where it has perfected it. Like, the machine has learned your language.
Wow.
And that explodes the possibilities of what like AI can do.
Yeah.
Because literally anyone can then talk to a machine and get what they want. And they won't be able to tell the difference whether they're talking to a machine or a human.
Now we're kind of reaching the Matrix type era.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where it's, yes, it's fabulous. It's very interesting and very inspiring. And the possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
But it's also scary as hell.
Yeah.
Because I remember seeing a couple of articles and seeing a couple of videos on how people were afraid because they got scammed with the use of AI. Like, they could hear their daughter's voice on the other end, or their father's voice on the other end, crying and howling. And then somebody else takes over and they say that, oh, we've kidnapped your daughter and I'm going to leave her in Mexico after having my way with her, etc. And then she's like, I will do whatever you need, but just take my money.
Absolutely.
It's fine. And that is scary because those kind of voices or those impersonations of their loved ones were so real that they couldn't tell. And in the moment, what happens is you try to call your daughter, she doesn't pick up because
she's in school, or
they have blocked her number. If the scamsters can get to you, they can even get to her.
She's at a party. They time it, right?
They time it exactly well.
She's on a flight.
Yes.
That's the time you'll do this, right?
Exactly. And they'll pretend to be, I don't know, hijackers on a flight.
Yeah.
And so how do you even protect yourself? And what, like, I also know that this industry of cybersecurity is exploding as well.
Yeah.
Because they both go hand in hand,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
As you advance in tech, you have to also advance in security.
Yeah.
So, number one, how do you protect yourself as an individual? And number two, cybersecurity and its future.
So I think where something helps you attack, like in this case, create a fake better, right? AI helps you do bad things better. It will also help you do good things better.
Yes.
So the protection systems will become better, right? So on your phone, you will probably have an AI system that's scanning your conversations or listening to your conversation and telling you whether it's
Real or
fake
not.
or not, right? And they already come out, like even like the video detectors and the deep image
Yes,
detectors
yes.
have come out that tell you whether it's a fake image or an AI generated image or not. So I think over there, there's the tech, the defensive tech will catch up. I think this mechanism of scamming people has always been there. It's just been the tech has like just become
Caught up.
Yeah, like earlier, like if someone sent you a Photoshop of your, of Barack Obama doing something, a lot of people would believe it. That when Photoshop had come out, right? Yeah, I think it was in 2000s and all.
And then some like African prince sends you an email that
a phishing attack. So now everyone's like if someone like if you get a magical email from like an African prince, you know that okay, this it's probably
fake.
a phishing, like a spam or and you're like now your boxes automatically filter those into a spam box.
Exactly.
Right. That you won $1 million in a lottery, those kind of things, right? So those were the scams of the past. I think the scams keep evolving as tech keeps becoming better. The education goes, and then automatically people kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a natural evolution.
Fair.
And it'll just take its general course, which it always does in the world.
Yeah. Fair. Absolutely. Now, cybersecurity. Do you see an explosion over there as well, where the industry is set to kind of achieve new heights?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's funny also because where we are with cybersecurity, like it just shows how weak we are in this example. I think everyone would have read about it. It just happened a few days / weeks ago where you heard about the Microsoft outage.
Oh
right?
my god.
And
It's literally happened right now.
Yeah, literally like okay, millions of Windows PCs went down and then you have airports and airlines and
all over the
banks
world
and exchanges going down.
On a Friday, everybody was like, bye.
Yeah, exactly. We're done. And it was essentially like one line of code written badly by a cybersecurity company, right? So man, you bought this antivirus and it's one of the world's largest antivirus. The company is worth billions of dollars, has written something wrong and it's taken down not half, but like millions of devices.
Yeah.
And a lot of the world has gone down with it. So I mean, that just shows how fragile cybersecurity is right now. But I think it is going to be a big boom, right? Because the attackers are going to get more sophisticated. Your data has anyways become a lot more digital. So the natural progression is that there's going to be a lot of investment in AI-powered, behavioral-powered cybersecurity. Nice. And if you see the transition over years, like CrowdStrike, a lot of people in industry would have heard about it because it's very popular. Like everyone in our generation would have heard of like Symantec and Norton and McAfee.
Yeah.
Those guys used to essentially do something called signature matching. So they take a virus and they'd kind of say, okay, this is what the file of a virus looks like. So it's literally the antivirus is going in a machine and searching for signatures which are similar to the viruses. Viruses have become very sophisticated, right? They can rewrite themselves in real time. Yeah. So suddenly someone who's doing like signature matching, like, oh, the viruses are like flown past, right? Like it's like they're creating fake IDs and then someone at the gate is checking whether your ID passport is correct or not. So CrowdStrike was a company that pioneered behavioral cybersecurity, which is it's checking the program's behavior and checking, oh, is this like program behaving normal or is it looking very fishy the way they're behaving?
Nice.
So that's where the whole industry is heading, where a lot of AI detection will happen to check whether these viruses, like to check what's looking as incorrect behavior, what's looking fishy behavior, and then build security walls behind it.
Nice. That's very cool. Yeah. So that's where cybersecurity is headed. Where is generative AI or AI in general? Where is that headed?
I think if you look back, right, in the 1970s, Steve Wozniak invented the first, he invented the first computer as it is today, right? He put a television and a typewriter together. right? And he said, ki, okay, now this is a computer. Because earlier you used to have those punch cards. Like literally a computer used to put a punch card in, program would run, and then it would give you punch outs. And that was the output of the machine. And he changed the paradigm. This was 1970s, right? The Apple II came out and all.
Yeah.
And actually, when I got to meet him and I asked him this, so if you look at tech over the last 50 years, it's not changed. Like the way you interact has changed slightly. Like instead of a physical typewriter keyboard, now you type on a virtual keyboard.
Yeah.
Instead of those CRT screens, those big
Now we
CRT
have
screens, like a LED or LCD screen. But essentially, the paradigm hasn't changed.
It's still a television
It's still
and a typewriter.
it's a screen and it's a keyboard, right? I think it's been 50 years. This is the next generation where we are seeing it's going to change, right? Like the way you interact with the machine is going to fundamentally change. And you already start seeing it a little bit, right? In your car, with your Alexa, with your Google Home. You started to talk a lot more with these devices and they're not that intelligent, right? But over the next 3 to 5 years, they're becoming phenomenally intelligent. So your whole paradigm of the way you interact is going to change. It's going to be just like talking to another human. It's going to be a lot more seamless. It's going to be a lot more omnipresent. And that's the way generative AI is heading. It's almost going to be like an operating system you talk to. Like in the movie Her, if everyone's seen that movie.
Yeah, or Iron Man.
Yeah, exactly. Like a Jarvis. Hey, everyone's
like
going to have a Jarvis,
yeah.
right? So I think that's where Gen AI is heading. It's going to get just a lot better, faster at understanding your needs. And it's going to change the way you interact.
Yeah, I'd love to have a Jarvis around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like Jarvis.
Yeah. I'd love to have a Jarvis do my homework when I was in school.
Don't give us ideas, okay? Now next thing will be Niyati's son comes up to me being like, listen, can you help can you help me design an AI that does my homework for me?
I mean, no, this happened. Like my nephew's 8 years old and he had to, okay, I'll keep it a little confidential, but he had to do this assignment, okay? And it's on do an assignment on Australia.
Okay.
And about Australia, give us some photos, tell us about the culture, etc. Typical 8-year-old assignment.
Sorry, 8
And it's supposed to be an assignment to do over the weekend. It's supposed to take you 48 hours. It's supposed to be you put the prompt in ChatGPT and you're like, and you say, okay, make it like an 8-year-old and write this assignment like an 8-year-old, and everything comes up and the images and literally it took 30 seconds to finish the assignment. Right? And this is the generation they live in.
Yeah, I don't think you can give such assignments to 8-year-olds anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Like thesis papers and like a traditional assignments, like
It's
projects.
redundant.
And you're not going to get those anymore.
Just blast from the past. I just went back and been like,
Absolutely.
maybe we just didn't have to do all of that.
Yeah. Also, I mean, they might also get screwed because they'll get much tougher assignments now.
Yeah. For sure,
Yeah.
imagine. They're like, ye to koi bhi kar sakta hai.
8-year-old will be writing, tell us about the political situation in Australia.
Oh my God.
and who will be, which party will win based on the political scene.
Yeah, create a predictive analysis.
And predict, give us your predictive split between, who's going to win. So.
Oh, damn, that sounds hectic.
Yeah.
So you were also behind Warren Buffett's conversational AI bot.
Yes.
If I'm not wrong. Okay.
His AI version.
His AI version.
Yeah.
How was that? That sounds like it's something very fun that you got to work on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the biggest things that came out of that was essentially, I mean, it changed my life, that moment, because I got to meet him in the US.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and that lunch, he told me 3 words that fundamentally changed the way I work.
Please tell us.
It was really funny because I was always the kind of person who was like, let's get things done. The quicker, the better. And, as an entrepreneur, always like, okay, fast and, let's,
execute.
we figured this out, let's move and all. And, there's not that much like, let's spend time learning, invest in learning. Let's spend on training and I actually hate spending on training. Right? What's the biggest waste of money? And,
you're the first person I've heard say this.
Yeah, I mean, it changes. So if you leave the podcast at this point in time, we'll have a very wrong impression. But So when I got to meet him, he said the biggest question to Warren was, and to his AI version that we created from all over the world was, what should I invest in?
Okay.
Right? And he said, invest in yourself.
Oh.
Right? And he went on to regale this beautiful story about how he was a really poor public speaker and poor communicator. And you see Warren now, right? Like the way he talks, like like his quotes are like legendary, and everyone, like his speeches are legendary.
Absolutely.
So he's a very poor public speaker, and he did this $100 Dale Carnegie course. And he said $100 at that time was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And he was like, even he was like, oh, should I put like $100 in the 1970s, 60s? But he did it. And he ended up, he became so confident after that course that he ended up proposing to his wife. So he got married, and he said it just changed everything about him.
Nice.
And today we live in a world where you can end up spending 1 lakh on an iPhone in a blink of an eye. But if someone says, I'm going to give you a course on tech or on investing, and it costs you even 80,000 rupees, I think everyone's going to be like, yeah, sorry, not for me. Right?
Here, 800 rupees people are not willing to pay.
Exactly. Like, 8,000 rupees, 50,000 rupees. Like once you go above the 1,000 mark, the people are like, oh, I'm not spending on this learning. This is not valuable to me. But and we went back and changed this about ourselves. We said, okay, like this is probably something big. And we started investing a lot in ourselves. Like, because till then we were very scrappy learners, right? We were great learners, but we would be like free resources, YouTube, online learning, like not online learning, but free online learning, right? And then when we started actually investing in like a course I did like multiple courses on investing. I did multiple courses on tech, on management, on leadership. And that just changed the game for me. Like, I mean, literally after that, very quickly in quick succession, I saw the business change. Like, we made it to the cover of Forbes after that. All of that came because of that one moment with him.
Nice.
And that project was actually pretty cool. So Forbes was essentially doing this 100-year anniversary for, they'd finished 100 years and they wanted to put Warren on the cover. And they came to us and said, okay, they'd heard about us as an AI company, and they said, oh, can you guys do something cool for the 100 years? Like, we want to know what the next 100 years will look like. And we want to represent that in the magazine. So we came up with this concept where we said, what does a reader want? Right? And we realized most readers, when they read a magazine, the biggest thing they want is, like, they want essentially something to, they want to ask the whoever's being covered, they want to ask them questions, right? And they each have something different. Like, I might ask on his investing style. Someone else might ask on his relationship with his father. Someone might ask like about crypto and what to do with crypto. Someone might ask his political lineage. And it's kind of scattered all over this article. So we said, can we make an AI version? Just comes up, you ask him questions in your own voice, and he will answer back to you. His AI version will answer back to you. And we had like millions of users. It was on the cover of the Global magazine. So that was a phenomenal experience.
That sounds so cool.
And I mean, it was like literally we finished the tech like just in time. Like, I remember the editor calling me up and saying, hey, we're printing like 5 million copies that are going out worldwide. So we have to print it 2 weeks in advance. So is it a go or a no go? And the tech wasn't complete.
Oh my God.
So we said, no, put it on the cover. So he put it. And we got everything ready in time. We had contingency plans. We had like a simpler version that like, okay, if nothing works, this will come up on the, because you have to take a photo of the cover and it will come. Got it. But yeah, like luckily everything worked out. But sometimes in entrepreneurship, you kind of, you have to you literally play close to the edge.
I think the summary of this podcast for me is going to be always have a contingency plan.
Yeah, it is. I think I've lived my life like building a contingency plan.
I love it. Even I have millions of them. You have also written, now talking about cool projects, you've also written a book completely by AI.
Yeah.
Right? Your AI version essentially has written the book.
Yes.
Number one, why did you do that? What made you think of that? And what does that mean for the creative fields in the future? Because we've heard a lot about, songs that are sung by AI, videos that are created by AI. Like somebody just the other day was telling me that, you can't create an IP, you can't hold an IP for a song that is generated by AI
Yeah.
because that is stock footage.
Correct.
So you can't technically own the video or the song, and you
Yeah.
can't monetize it.
Yeah.
So, number one, why, how, and creative fields.
Yeah. So we actually sent the book in the US trademark office to get trademarked.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they
did it?
Yeah, no, they wrote a letter back saying anything written by an AI can't be
See,
trademarked.
Exactly.
So the concept was essentially we were an AI company, right? And the biggest thing most people would come back to us about is how do I implement it? What are the key elements I should look for? How do I train my team? How do I make AI successful? And essentially how do I not have a failure? Because about 70% of all AI implementations globally fail in organizations.
Wow.
Which
70%, that's a high number.
Which is a very staggering number. Right? Considering everyone's like AI,
Yeah.
70% failure rate is quite bad. But we essentially thought of the idea of writing a book to kind of dispel a lot of these myths and kind of tell people what makes us AI implementation successful and what are those ingredients you need. And the book was called Bridging the AI Gap, which is the gap between what you think can happen and what will eventually happen in an AI implementation. And at that time, we had these generative AI algorithms that the team had, we were kind of building and we had worked on. And we were like, wow, they've become really good. So our AI was called Fluid GPT. So we said, can Fluid GPT just write the book? So we trained it. And this was actually 1 month before ChatGPT came out.
Oh, wow.
So the book actually launched 1 month before ChatGPT came out. So if you go to Amazon, you can order on Amazon, Flipkart and all. When you go on Amazon, it'll actually show the date October 22 as the release date. ChatGPT came out in November 22. So we then got AI to write the book. And when we read it, we were like, wow, this is like phenomenal. Like I couldn't have written it as good as it. Yeah. This is written really well. So that's when we released it out, published it. Actually became a bestseller. So it's one of the world's first AI written books to become a bestseller as well. And I think it really kind of pushed the needle of what's possible. And for us, it was a great testament that it's a space we recognized far before kind of the wave hit. But I think it's not going to replace, like everyone keeps saying, it's going to replace like creativity and it's going to replace writers, etc. Because you can look at very simple examples from the past. And I always like to do this, right? If you just replay the past, you know much of what's going to happen in the future. Because if you look at when the camera was developed, right? Everyone's like, the art of painting is going to die. And the art of capturing a scene is going to change. And, they're not going to be valuable anymore. But two things have happened, right, with the camera developed. One is you've got a new form of creativity.
Yeah.
So a lot more people are being creative and being part of the arts. Like Instagram and all is just part of that creative approach that people take now. Sharing photos and digital. So it created a massive new avenue of creativity. And art has just gotten a lot more expensive. Right?
Yeah.
It's just that the value of human creation has in fact gone up. Not down.
Very true.
And it just made it more democratized for everyone to create.
Yeah. Very, very true. Very interesting. Because the same conversation when I was having about the whole IP situation and everything. Number one, yes, intellectual property is going to be, difficult to place. Because as AI gets better and as, as AI can actually generate those videos and musical, notes, etc. It is going to be difficult. It's going to be a difficult conversation later on. Right now, yes, you can't trademark it. You can't create an IP from it. But maybe later in the future, who knows?
It is. And actually, something interesting is going to happen in the next 2-3 years. Actually, creators are going to be able to make a lot more money from their content. Because if you look back, right, how does a human write or create content, right? You learn from the environment around you, which is what the AI is doing. Yes. So it's not like everyone keeps talking about, it's copyright infringement. It's learning from something. But I'm going to take this really controversial example. But if you look at a J.K. Rowling.
Yes.
She's probably, when she wrote a Harry Potter, read a Chronicles of Narnia. And my wife will hate me for saying this. She read a Chronicles of Narnia. She's probably read a lot of other books.
Yeah.
Right. And that's how she came up with Harry Potter with her own uniqueness.
100%.
But she got inspired by a lot of writing.
Of course, there's so many similarities between Gandalf and Dumbledore.
Exactly.
And, so many things. Yeah.
So all of this happens, and then when an AI does it, AI is also doing the same thing. It's reading a bunch of content and then coming out with new generation.
Yeah.
then suddenly everyone's like, oh, this is
This is
this is
copy.
copyright.
But you are also copying,
Yeah,
getting
exactly.
inspired.
Yeah, like when our web team goes and say, okay, we're going to make a new website, the first thing they'll ask is
References.
yeah, give me reference websites, and then I get inspired by those, and then I generate a new
Yeah.
website. So humans do this.
Of
Like this is
course.
how humans work.
Yeah.
What's going to happen though is, and I still feel that creators who are creating hardcore content and the AI is getting inspired by it and then creating new content and making revenue off of it, obviously you need to give the creators their due.
Correct.
Right? And it's getting cleared out in the next 1-2 years. But people are going to be able to monetize their content for training an AI.
That is
Right?
very cool.
A New York Times got paid $100 million by OpenAI to say, I'm going to read all your articles and content and train the next version of GPT for it. The New York Times making $100 million from its old content, like old archive content from the 2000s, is impossible.
Yeah.
So if you are a creator of great content, the industry is going to actually allow you to take all your old archives and say, I submit it for training and I get paid for it.
That's amazing.
Which is going to open up so you should always keep your old content, right? All that old content that you're thinking of deleting, it's on a hard disk somewhere. And you're like, oh, why is this taking up space in my house?
Yeah.
Keep it because it's going to become a lot more valuable.
Yeah. Even like for that matter, now that I think about it, when we're talking about the future, it's data, right?
Yeah.
Data is wealth.
Yeah.
Because AI is going to learn from it.
Yeah.
Companies are selling it, reselling it.
Yeah.
You're selecting accept all every time you download a new app.
Yeah, absolutely.
So data is really going to be what will be traded.
And I think more than data though, I think people give data like a very common, like all data in the world a very common level.
Yeah.
But I think high quality data is going to get a much higher premium than generic data.
Fair. Absolutely.
Right? So like with you guys, right, you have these beautiful sets of content in FinCocktail, right? That's sparse like thousands of hours of content now. But it's very high quality content. It's validated by an audience at scale.
Yeah.
So that data is much more valuable than if you're just creating a lot of content on Instagram.
Just for the sake of
and it's like, okay, it's content, but is it really like
adding any value to my
it's
life?
like just funny videos of someone doing something which like 10 people have seen.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, coming back to the fact that, you went and invested in yourself and learned you did a few financial management courses or etc. So you are interested in finance as well.
Yeah, I love investing.
Love investing. Yeah. So tell us how you manage your own money.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for entrepreneurs, anyone who runs a business, right, they keep associating their business wealth with their personal wealth.
100%.
Right, and that's a big mistake because you need to be creating your own personal wealth from the profits of the business, and you need to be investing and compounding it.
Thank you for saying that, so I don't have to.
Yeah. So I think keeping your personal, like growing your personal wealth is very important. And so Raghav and me both run our family office where we do a lot of investing, across different styles. So we have more small and micro cap equity players because we feel there's a lot more money there. And the last 3 years have been like the biggest small cap equity bull run like the India has ever seen. So I think it's good timing. But what we've ended up doing a lot is, right, I think the biggest thing when you're investing is you need to really understand the companies you're investing in, right? I think like people do this all the time. Like I've seen people know everything about like a football team, like all the stats. And I've been guilty of this. Like I'm a Formula 1 fan. So I know all the stats. And then you're putting down money in a company and you'll know it, but will you actually know it, right? So I think it's a lot like that, right? If you took someone intelligent like who follows football and you said, this purchase of this player is happening by this team, and what, like, is it valuable? And they'll know everything with past valuations, the scores, the statistics. If you apply the same methodology in stocks, you end up making a lot more alpha and money just because you're much more intelligent about what's happening. And the way to do that is just to read about the annual report, the transcript calls, like the conference calls that have happened, the announcements that the stock has done, kind of gives you sometimes no-brainer decisions into a stock. And so what we've done essentially is because we had, it's like I found that very painful process, right? Of like, okay, reading all this content.
Don't tell me you created an AI for
So
this
we
also. Oh
use
my
our
God.
own AI because generative AI is really good at reading
Yeah.
text data, right?
Yeah.
So we actually deploy our generative AI to read a lot of this and kind of give us the short insights into
Yeah.
whether this position needs to be taken or not.
Yeah.
But our typical approach to investing is like we have a framework of about 20 idea formats that work. So it could be like a change in margin that the company is undergoing because of its position. It could be a management change. It could be a demerger. It could be big capex investment that's showing up in the books. Like it's already shown up in the books, but now
It's
the fruits of the capex are kind of going to play out. So there are about 20 such models, like a deleverage, right? That debt is getting off the books quickly. So we have about 20 such models that we deploy to search for great ideas, and then we invest and hold. And I mean, we're okay. We're not like, traditional Warren Buffett says, buy and hold for 10, 20 years. But Warren has told me this, like when he invested when he was young, he would take quick position, like 3 months, 6 months, turn in, churn out, ride things, move things with momentum as well. So I think when your capital is small, you need to be a little different about investing. Like don't read too much or learn too much from someone who's investing $100 billion in capital, because they're going to invest very differently from someone who's investing like $1,000 or $10,000 or $100,000 in capital. They have a lot more limitations of what they can do, and so I think you should look at Warren's early years or investors' early years when they made their capital, and not what a Peter Lynch or a Warren Buffett is doing currently in this time. Yeah.
Very interesting. I love it. I love your take on this. Before I let you go, I'd love to hear, let's say, 3 things for somebody who's in their 20s who wants to get into tech right now. What would you tell them? Like little pieces of advice.
Yeah. I think number 1 is improve your ability to learn, right? Forget knowledge was anyways passe since 2010, right? Google came about. Now more so, right? So I don't think people are going to hire you, or your business is going to grow because you have a lot of knowledge. It's going to grow because of your ability to learn in a situation. So I think hone that skill. And generative AI is changing so fast, right? Like it's kind of really cycled the industry much faster. So what would happen in 6 months, or what would take a year now happens in a week sometimes. Right? Like last year we had a generative AI, like ChatGPT came. And this year we have GPT-4o, which is essentially like you can interact with it on voice, and you can tell it, make your expressions this way. It's still going to be released to the public in the next couple of months, but it's very different, right? So I think your ability to learn and adapt is going to be a big game changer. What else? I think number 2 is mindset. Build the right mindset. I think having a growth mindset is very, very critical to success, right? And a growth mindset actually talks about, like, don't focus on the end result, the goal. Focus on the process. Focus on enjoying the process. Because if you just enjoy the process, you're going to be successful, like by default. Like a Tiger Woods, and it's written in his book and all that, you can, like, he would enjoy spending time just in a bunker playing 100 shots. Figuring out what's the most optimum, as opposed to keeping score of, what was my handicap today, what's my handicap yesterday. You do that, but that's not why you're playing golf. Right? So I think that's number 2, that I would say that's something like mindset is going to be very, very critical in the way you approach it. And number 3, I think is I think you underestimate your success in 10 years and you overestimate your success in 1 year. So most people, when they start out something, will be like, okay, and I did the same. Like when we started the business, the AI business in 2012, if you took what I thought we'd be in 2013, 14, I was like, oh wow, we'll like grow by this much percentage, and this will happen, and we'll win these many customers. And not a lot of it happened. But when you told me to estimate what we'd achieve over 10 years time, like the stuff we've achieved, I would have never put that, like a meeting of Warren, or doing the stuff we did. I would have never assumed thought that this all can happen, or the company can reach this size. And I think too many people get discouraged in the
short term,
the first year, the first, second year, because it doesn't match their expectations. And though they have the potential, though they could have done it, they sadly just leave it at that.
Very nicely done. And I'm going to add a fourth point. Always have a contingency plan.
Yeah, yeah, that is true. That is true.
Thank you so much, Abhinav. This was a great, great chat. I think it was I think the first chat we've had on AI.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it was too much fun.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna
Yeah,
try
no,
to
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
a lot. Yeah.
It's always great
Yeah.
chatting with you.
Absolutely. So I think everyone, if you've not already, you must like, share, and subscribe to FinCocktail. I think it's an amazing wealth of knowledge that you get in like these both long form and short form snippets. So I feel like I've learned a lot from it. So do follow.
Yay. Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you in the next one.